It's time for more
Budget Bombs.
Powerful commander cards for under $1.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. We'd love it if you checked out our Patreon, because if you do, we have the opportunity, the rare opportunity to continue eating food for the rest of the week. You could give us your direct support. We'll appreciate you as much as we possibly can, and you'll be a hero.
A literal hero. You will save the nerds and let us eat oranges. I wasn't going to buy oranges, but now that I got a new patron, I can buy oranges. Think about that.
Thank God.
Thank God. Also support this channel. You can use our Cool Stuff Inc. This channel is powered by, sponsored by, all that good stuff. Cool Stuff Inc. You can use the code NERDS and get 5% off your order. And when you get that 5% off, you're not only supporting yourself, you're saving money. Actual, physical, real, not probably physical, probably digital money, because most people use debit cards nowadays. You're saving yourself that money, and the nerds are getting supported at the same exact time.
Yes, and with this particular episode, you can buy all the cards on this list, and your wallet will barely even feel it. And Cool Stuff says, no, you still get a discount, because they're just awesome.
Nerds. Use the nerds. Use the nerds code. If you would like to buy the best sleeves in the multiverse,
good sleeves,
then you can use Dragon Shields, because they're literally amazing. And Cool Stuff Inc. carries Dragon Shields. It's a match made in heaven, truly.
Just too perfect. So these are budget bombs. Budget bombs does not mean it is a explosive device. It does not mean that the card will win you the game by itself. Budget bombs is literally just the name of this series we've been doing of awesome commander cards for under $1. And in this case, this is like super budget bombs episode, because at least 10 cards on this list are like 25 cents.
Yes, there's all these cards are extremely cheap. I think the most you're going to see one is like 90 cents. I mean, what is that? I mean, 90 cents is nothing for a great, strong Magic card.
People always say, you guys recommend, sometimes you recommend cards that are way too expensive for me. This is the series for you. This is cards that are functional in a budget environment. Some of them extend to outside a budget environment, but all of these we're going to be talking about in the context of, I'm on a limited budget. Let me find the best cards I can.
Yes, and we'll mention if they extend out of the budget, we'll always give you the mention, so you know to put it in your good decks.
Yeah, let's go to the first one. It's Shigeki Jukai Visionary. A very fun name to say, Shigeki. He's a 2-mana 1/3. You can pay 2 and bounce him to your hand to mill 4, but you can put a land from among those 4 onto the battlefield tapped. And now he's in your hand, and that's great, because then you can channel him by paying X green, and then discarding him to bring back X non-legendary cards to your hand. This is at instant speed, by the way, so if you spend 4 mana, you get 1 card. If you spend 8 mana, you get 3 cards.
Yeah, and this thing kind of changed with other stuff. Other things that rebuy Shigeki from the graveyard. Okay, I'll discard, get back 3 cards. One of them's Balagan Recovery. Okay, whoops, looks like we're doing some sort of loop now where I'm basically unstoppable because I'm getting my best 2 cards back and the card that rebuys Shigeki to just keep this loop going. And it puts you in this really dominant position, especially in a budget game where if other players aren't able to stop this little loop you're doing, they're going to be put in a really tough position where you're basically locking down the game with the pieces you have in your graveyard.
Yeah, and what if the cards you get back is like, what if one of them's a board wipe and you just keep going? It's like you have to find some other way to beat me, because you're not going to outvalue me. You just can't do it. You have to Bajuka Bog me or something at the right time, and Shigeki's going to mess you up.
Yeah, Shigeki, I think, can move off a budget at times, but he's in a budget, this card is absurd. I've literally seen games locked out by $50 budget decks because of Shigeki. Moving on, we have Primaris Eliminator. This guy is a 5-mana creature, comes in, you choose one. You can either destroy target creature or choose target opponent, and all of their creatures get -2/-2. I mean, you're playing a little bit of a premium on Choops. 1 more mana. That's not that much more to pay for the same exact effect. And then you get the versatility of also wiping away token decks.
This thing is like, I was really surprised this is 20-something cents, because it's got this similar Shriekmaw text. So like, if you pay 5 mana for Shriekmaw, I think this card's just better. If you pay 5 mana for it, Shriekmaw, obviously, the wrinkle is you could pay 2 mana for it and do other stuff. But like Chupacabra compared to this, it feels a little close. It's not double black, it's single black pip. It's got an extra power, it's not nothing. And then you could sweep away a bunch of tokens at once, or clear out the board of everybody in the early game, or just take out the biggest creature in the late game. This card has been sweet. I've been playing a lot of it in the budget decks that I build. Fun fact, I have an entire separate meta from Joe Cherries where we play a lot of budget stuff, and this card is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this card's just good, period. I have this card in like my Henty deck, and it's just a strong removal spell for that deck.
Outside of budget.
That's outside of budget. That is literally not a budget deck, and this card just plays well because, like I said, Choop's already a playable card outside of budget decks, and this card is too because it's 1 more mana, and you get the versatility of literally certain decks will get absolutely demolished, getting 4, 5 for 1s with this card.
Probably want to still make sure you have a little synergy, care about the fact that it's a creature, be able to reanimate it, be able to give it blitz like Joe does, that kind of thing. Don't just play it in a black deck.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Exactly. I mean, same thing with Choop. It's the same. Yeah. Think of it like a Chupacabra. In a deck where you would play a Chupacabra, consider this card as well.
Next is sort of a white staple, but it's got printed at uncommon. That pretty much killed the price. It's Mentor the Meek. 3 mana 2/2. When your small creatures enter, you can pay 1 and draw a card. And it's repeatable. It's not once per turn. It is a little pricey compared to stuff like Welcoming Vampire, but Welcoming Vampire is a little real-world pricey compared to Mentor the Meek.
Yeah, exactly. Mentor the Meek has been kind of just like this little staple of your tokening decks, of your make small creature decks for a long time. It's been around. This card is not new. We're not pulling this one out of our butts. We're not pretending like this is something we're introducing to the format. No,
New discovery.
This card's been around forever, and it's still amazing. It hasn't stopped being amazing. Has it gotten worse over time? Of course, because as power creep comes in and we get more cards and more cards and more cards and more cards, slowly this will become worse and worse, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still strong, especially in your budget decks.
Oh yeah, it's going to draw you cards. As long as you can start, maybe play this and then draw a card right away, then I start feeling like I'm not really too invested in what happens after that. I got my cantrip off of it. If you let me untap with it, I'm going to draw 5 more cards. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's a strong Magic card, especially in your white weenie type decks or token decks. Moving on, we have Inspired Tinkering. 5 mana, you impulse draw the top 3 cards of your deck, which if you don't, it's not impulse like the card. I know some people get confused by that, but you flip them, you exile them, and then you can play them until the end of your next turn, and you get 3 treasures, making it much easier to cast it. This essentially costs 2 mana to get the top 3 cards. That's a really strong rate.
Yeah, and you could just save the treasures for next turn. Usually what I've done with this card is early game, you can play like a Signet or a Diamond or something on turn 2, play this on turn 4, then you make your land drop with it. Even if you hit another land, you still get that next turn, so you got 2 of the 3 cards, and then you just need 1 spell to be able to cast whenever, and most likely I save the 3 treasures for like a big turn coming up. This card has actually just been amazing, and I play it in multiple decks.
Yeah, and this one is another one that kind of comes off of a budget. If you're playing Faldorn Prosper or anything that cares about casting cards from exile, this card is just good in those decks, period. You don't really have to worry about it being budget.
Okay, do you know what this is the budget version of? And I don't even think it's that much of an exaggeration. Jessica's Will. You get 3 cards, and you get some mana.
Yeah, it isn't. It definitely a budget version of it. Yes, I can.
You do get the cards for longer.
Yes, that is true. It is definitely worse than Jessica's Will, like undoubtedly. But budget version, I can settle for that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Fairy Seer. 1 mana, 1/1 enters. Scry 2. It's got flying.
Wow.
This card, I know it sounds so boring. It doesn't sound like it really does anything. But any deck that is taking advantage of the fact that this is a flyer, it's an evasive threat. It's a fairy, like anything like that. The Scry. If you care about any of these things, suddenly this card is really, really good in the most efficient rate you're going to get to do almost any one of these effects.
Yeah, I always expect annoying ninjutsu stuff out of this, or like maybe you suit it up with something, or give it when it deals combat damage, just a cheap evasive thing. Your deck's going to be overloaded with this type of thing, so Fairy Seer helps guarantee you have whatever it is you need on turn 1, which is just some unblockable dummy.
So if you're playing a deck like Edric, Spymaster Tress, where you want all these evasive threats, awesome in that deck. Like you're playing a ninjutsu deck, just like Tetsuro Umezawa. Boom, goes in that deck. And there's so many little things. You're playing Una, Fairy Tribal. Perfect. Find the decks that want one of these effects. Eligeth, another one. The
Draw
Scry.
2.
It's literally so strong in any one of these given decks.
Might even be good in Elminster, but I have to see about that.
I think I'm undoubted. I can say almost undoubtedly it is because it's just a 1 mana. All your instant sorceries are going to cost 2 less. Okay, that's very strong.
That's pretty good. And Elminster is from Battle for Baldur's Gate, but also from that set is Mighty Servant of Luco. This is a 3 mana 6/6 trample vehicle. It's got crew 4, but you really have to crew it with 2 creatures exactly because that gives you the ability for this thing to, when it hits, draw 2 cards. Also, it has ward to discard a card, so people aren't going to go out of their way to throw spot removal at this as much as they would. This card has been amazing. It's like pretty cheap, not just mana-wise, money-wise too. It's pretty cheap to cast, and it's not that hard to throw 2 2/2s and crew this thing, and then it just draws you 2 cards. There's no downside. This is like Boros deck's dream.
Yeah, I think the main thing you have to make sure with this deck is that you're going to be able to crew it consistently with creatures. If you're playing all 1/1s, don't do that. No, this deck's not going to be good, or this card's not going to be good in a deck that's all 1/1s. You need those 2-power creatures, or bigger, so you can put 2 of them into the card and get in, because it's super important. This card is literally asking, it's like, put 2 creatures in me, I suck otherwise.
Yeah, and also, you don't really need, like, a 2/2 and a 2/2. If you just have a 4/4 and any other creature, you can crew this.
That's true. That is very true as well. So just make sure you have the right creatures to make sure you're going to be crewing this thing and that it's getting that ability, because that's what all the strength is, right? There's no strength in the rest of this card. It's a horrible card outside of the hit and draw 2.
And please give it Double Strike.
Next, we have Outpost Siege and Visions of Phyrexia, both 2 very similar cards. 3 in a rev for Outpost Siege, you choose Khans or Dragons. Well, we're most likely going to choose Khans because at the beginning of our upkeep, what we do is we exile the top card of our library. We can play it until the end of our turn. Or, when you choose Dragons, things that leave, go ahead and ping your opponents for 1. Awesome. That's a nice little effect to have as well.
It's actually any target, so it's even better.
It's even better. So it's a removal. It's there. But what we care about is the first half, just like on Visions of Phyrexia, which is 2 red. So we've got that same line of text where at the beginning of your upkeep, you impulse draw a card, exile off the top, you can play it until end of turn. But this time, if you don't play it, you get a tap Power Stone.
And the first time you play this card, you don't get an upkeep trigger because you cast it in your main phase. So you're going to get a Power Stone at the end step, most likely, which is just gravy.
So these cards are just... they're Phyrexian arenas, but they're under $1. That's really the key to these cards, is they're great budget cards. They're really good in your low impact, but they do go outside of budget a little bit when you start talking about your Prosper decks and you start talking about your Faldorn decks.
You know what they actually are is red. Red sucks at card draw. Red is easily the worst color for drawing cards. And these type of effects, like Outpost Siege and Visions of Phyrexia, some of the best stuff you're going to get on a budget. Same with Inspired Tinkering. They're going to actually make sure you stay ahead on cards and don't just cast Faithless Looting 10 times and then lose.
Yeah, exactly. These cards they're solid. Like, I have played these before. I have them in decks, and they perform very well. They're also not big targets for removal. They just don't come off as that big a threat usually.
Yeah. Sometimes Outpost Siege can be a super big threat when you choose Dragons.
That's true. That if you choose Dragons and then try and wipe the board, it's like, oh.
I did get somebody to 1 life and then play Outpost Siege on Dragons. That was pretty funny.
And then they cry.
They just were like, all right, we're done.
I think they cried.
Yeah. Let's go over to Satyr Wayfinder. This is a card we play all the time, budget or not budget, but I don't feel like we talk about it that much. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1 ETB. Look at the top 4. Pick a land from among them, put it into your hand. The rest go to your graveyard, so it fills up your graveyard. It's a stupid little 1/1 dork body creature to sacrifice later, or to care about how many creatures in your graveyard. And it helps you make your next land drop. This card's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I actually just put this in another non-budget deck. I put this into my Thalia and the Gitrog monster deck because it finds me a land, and that's a body for me to sacrifice with Thalia and the Gitrog monster. Oh, it's amazing. This card is, it looks so innocuous, right? You look at this card, it's like, what the? Why am I putting this in my deck? This card does nothing. But then you play it and you realize it's just... It lets you spin your wheels. It lets you get going. It lets you get on the board early to have a chump blocker, maybe get in for that damage, steal the monarchy. All these little tiny things it does just add up to a card that actually performs very well.
Yeah, it's super sweet. All these grindy decks, they want to just never miss a land drop, ever. And they want to just keep going and filling up their graveyard, or keep hitting lands or extra lands per turn, or putting extra lands in their hand. And Satyr Wayfinder just does it all for an extremely cheap cost. And some of what you can do is like, I'll fill my graveyard up a little bit, sacrifice it, play it again. Now my graveyard's even more full. And these Carador and Marin decks can really start like spamming it.
Yeah, I think it's super important to remember the thing that makes this card so good is it's a creature. Because we would never play this effect on an instant, on a sorcery. Probably not.
Mulch is pretty bad.
Yeah, Mulch is not a good card. We don't want to put Mulch in our deck. Satyr Wayfinder gets around that by being a creature for our creature-based deck.
Next is a sorcery for your creature-based decks. It's Gix's Command. It's 3 black for a sorcery, and you choose 2 of the following 4 modes. You're either going to put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature and give it lifelink until end of turn. You're going to destroy all creatures with power 2 or less. You're going to have each opponent sacrifice the creature with their greatest power they control, or you're going to bring 2 creatures back from your graveyard to your hand. I didn't get the exact order right, but I will note that the return 2 creatures from your graveyard to your hand does not target
Oh, that's interesting. So this card is basically can guarantee like this weird 5-for-1 for 5 mana, which is a really cool spot to be, right? You're always going to be able to choose the get rid of the biggest creature thing. Okay, everybody sacrifices no matter what. Even if they have like something only small stuff, they still sacrifice something. You get rid of a card for everybody. Then you return 2 creatures to your hand. So now this card has generated 5 cards worth of value, and that's a really awesome spot to be considering we're on a budget. 5-for-1s are not something you just find laying around.
Yeah, and if you're overwhelmed by tokens, that other mode is going to come in clutch where you just sweep away everything with power 2 or less. Like, that's only half the card, too. So if you have a big giant monster, you can pump it up, give it lifelink, clear out all the chump blockers, and attack and gain a bunch of life while dealing damage to the opponent. And there's just like 85 ways that this card can be good for you. But mostly, I think it's there for the guaranteed 5-for-1, get 2 creatures back, kill their best thing.
Yeah, exactly. Then this card is just very versatile. Like that is one of the keys to it, right? Because like none of these modes are like at this cost. I don't want any single one of these modes. Like it's double raise death. No, terrible. Like terrible. Like putting the counters, terrible. Putting minus thing. But we combine this all into one package, and suddenly we have this amazing card that's much stronger. I really enjoy this because I really like looking at cards that are modal and saying, wow, each individual choice is terrible, right? Like at the mana I'm paying. But when we combine them into this package, you get an awesome card.
Yes, I think Gixxis Mana has been great. I have it in 2 budget decks already, and I probably would just play it in any black budget deck that cares about creatures. I don't think I would exclude this card. This next one's from New Capenna, and it's actually one of the most satisfying cards I've ever cast. It's really good. It's a little chat. It's 1 and a blue for a instant. And it's got casualty 1, so you can sacrifice a creature with basically any amount of power and copy it. So you're going to look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand and 1 in the bottom of your library, and then if you casualty it again, you repeat it. So as long as you have little dudes to sacrifice to this, like a token or something, a lot of these Izzet decks can make tokens really easily. You just get 2 mana, and it's better than draw 2. It's like, look at the top 4, pick the best 2 for 2 mana.
I'm going to have to take BC's word on this one because this card still looks like butts to me.
This thing has been amazing.
I trust you. Like I am trusting you on that. But like when I look at this card, I read this like bad preordain effect that is like doesn't do that much. But I understand that, yeah, if you're playing, it seems like where we really want this is your Izzet Spellslinger decks. They're playing all the Young Pyromancer type effects.
Which is a lot of decks.
Which is a fair number of decks. So if you're playing exactly that kind of deck, maybe that is where this card will shine.
Yeah, as long as you can sacrifice it. If you're playing 2 mana for this, it feels pretty bad. But I felt pretty far ahead when I get to cast this with casualty and not have to sacrifice a real creature. A lot of these decks could struggle. You know, you have your cantrips all day and you can spin your wheels, but sometimes you hit lands or you run out. This is like you're not going to hit lands off it because you're looking at 4 cards, and it actually puts you up on cards. It's just great, and it's got a fail case of you can still cast it.
I do like that you're not going to hit lands off of it, but if there's 2 lands in a row, you will hit a land off of it.
That's true. Then you'll be happy. You'll be like, great, I only hit 1 land off of it.
All right, Genesis Hydra is up next, and Genesis Hydra is a card that's been, again, this is one of those cards where, just like Metro the Meek, we're not discovering this. This is not new technology, been around forever.
No, this is our preview card for March of the Machine.
But we're going to talk about it because it's a really sweet card. It's X green. You reveal for Hydra, and enters that many counters, and then you reveal that many cards at the top of your library, and you get 1 permanent from among them that costs extra less directly onto the battlefield.
Cool thing about this is that it's on cast, so even if it gets countered, you just lose a vanilla creature. I kind of don't even really care about that.
Yeah, the vanilla creature is fine. Like, we want a nice vanilla creature. Like,
it's just a 2-for-1.
Yeah, exactly. We're playing a 2-for-1 to get this nice big body that we threw all this mana into, and then cheating something off the top to go with it. That's what makes this card worth its mana.
Yeah, I think I like to keep this one in the budget sphere. I wouldn't really turn to this outside of that, but I think if you've got this big deck that's trying to be mana hungry and just pump a bunch of mana into spells, it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I can't really think of too many places that would go to this off a budget besides maybe an X spell deck. There's just not many places to go with this. All right, we got Mob Rule now. 6 mana sorcery. You can steal all the small creatures, power 3 or less, or you can take 4 or greater power. Take them all. They gain haste. You can attack with them. Where this gains a lot of its power is, obviously, this is a game ender sometimes when the board is in the right position or it's set up right. You just take everything, swing, win, or kill a player or 2. Combine it with sack outlets, and suddenly you've got a pseudo board wipe.
Dirty.
It's super dirty, exactly. So you take all these creatures, you attack, you get in some damage. Maybe you don't even kill anybody, but okay, I'll sacrifice your stuff. It's all gone. Get it off the board. Now, I did this one-sided board wipe to all the things with power 4 or greater. Great. Awesome. And I got into this awesome attack that probably got at least 10 damage through.
Yeah, I got to deal like 16 damage, and I killed all the relevant creatures my opponents control. This card has been good. I think I disliked this card for a while, unjustifiably, because there is monkeys on the art, and I really just don't like monkeys. I think I was stupid. I looked at it, and I was like, I hate this. This card must be bad. It's got monkeys on it. But it actually is pretty sweet. So as soon as there's another art, let me know. But it is a big swingy effect. It's kind of like a budgety Insurrection. It can end games. But with stack outlets, I think is really where it just like cranks it up a notch.
Yeah, I think it's super important with this one. This one's just a budget card. So, like, you're not justified in not liking this card outside of a budget. I think that it's a completely justifiable take. I don't want to touch this card outside of a budget.
Right, but it might be less justifiable to say, I'm not touching this card because it has monkeys on it.
Yes, that is not a great take. But though, it is completely fair. If someone is afraid of monkeys, I would never expect them to play Ragavan in their deck.
I'm not afraid of monkeys, I promise. Next I have Jukai Naturalist. It's green-white for an enchantment creature. It's got lifelink, it's a 2/2, and your enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast. So this is just, if you are playing an enchantment deck, here's a medallion for you. Here is the Goblin and Necromancer of enchantment decks. Bonus, it's got lifelink.
Yeah, it does have lifelink. So I think what gives this thing a little extra boost here, what I really like about it is that a lot of enchantment decks are aura decks. You're suiting up your creatures. So this having lifelink already, all right, let's suit it up, let's get it real big. Now when we swing with it, it's an actual threat that's gaining me a ton of life. That's where I think this thing like gets that extra oomph, because there are other cards like this that, you know, I'm not like super high on or super low on. I'm kind of in the middle, but I think that lifelink just takes this card from like, okay, it's pretty good to it's great.
I actually kind of forgot this card existed, and you're reminding me now that I think I want this card in my Bant enchantment deck that I haven't updated in like 8 months.
Oh yeah, that's right. Something super important about this card. The lifelink, yeah, I love the lifelink, but I forgot the most important card. This card's an enchantment.
It is an enchantment for your enchantment decks. It's not like all those crappy, stupid 2-mana 2/2s from every core set where it's like your enchantments cost less and it's a centaur and it's holding a flag and it's made of stars and it's not an enchantment.
Exactly. That's so important. I can't even stress how much this like forget what I said about lifelink. Replace that all with
Typing.
it being with typing. Being an enchantment for an enchantment deck is huge.
Drawing a card off of this versus not is like, why would I ever play those other crappy cards?
Yeah, exactly. It's so important. All right. A card that we've not been high on in the past. We probably would have told you don't play it much, but guess what? It's a budget bomb. It's a budget bomb. Painful Quandaries. 5 mana. When an opponent casts a spell, they got 2 choices. Lose 5 life or discard a card. They got to do one of those. This card's actually just strong. Like, period. I've been super impressed with what this card does in your budget metas because...
Yeah, I would say don't touch this outside of budget. But I think in the budget, slightly slower, slightly grindier type of games, this is just it can start slowly draining them out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen it do stuff off a budget, but I'm not impressed by it. Like it does do things off a budget, but the main weakness of this card is it gives your opponents a choice. But when we're talking about slower, grindier games that are had in budget environments, this card starts shining a lot more. Players are going to be casting in their long grindy game. Players cast more spells. Therefore, this has more of an impact on them.
Yeah, I think it's an enchantment, so it's a little bit stickier than your average like hate bear creature. I would say it's worth trying in budget decks if you want like a Staxy type of effect, you know, like a group slug type of deal.
Yeah, this is not a fun card. Yeah, that is pretty clear. Like I've played against Painful Quandaries, and sometimes I just literally groan because it's like ugh.
Whether or not it's good, it is annoying.
Whether or not it's good, it's a groaner. It's a groaner for sure.
Something else that's a groaner if your opponents are at low life is Pontiff of Blight. This is the black fireball because it gives all your creatures extort. It's a 6-mana 2/7 that also has extort. And Extort doesn't care about color identity, so you can just play it in a black deck, or if you're a black-white deck, sure, whatever. But it's all of your creatures have Extort, so if you have 4 creatures and you cast a spell, you can now pay 4 black or white mana to then deal 4 to each opponent and gain 12.
Yes, this is an absolute finisher for your black decks, right? Like almost any black deck can just throw this in on a budget, and it's going to be a finisher. You're going to have creatures. I mean, if you're playing on a budget, I don't know what non-creature strategy you can play. Like that's like you can play like maybe some like, oh yeah, like I can do some spell slinger, but it's like you're still going to have a ton of creatures, right? Because how else are you going to finish off a game on a budget?
I've never been the biggest fan of Exsanguinate, and it's certainly not a budget card, but this turns all your spells into Exsanguinate. They're like, whatever the spell does, also pay X and Exsanguinate X for X.
Exactly, and it's a mana sink. Every extra mana you have is going to use. You're not going to leave much mana in the pool, maybe 1 or 2 at the most. That's it, because every extra mana you be like, all right, that's a extort. So when you do 3, drain 3, drain 3, drain 3, gain 9.
This is a budget game we're playing. Life totals are way more important in budget than non-budget. In non-budget, they're a resource. Feel free to rip through them and throw down your necropotences and whatnot, but in budget, I think it matters a little bit more that you are not at 10.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to state, because BZ made it sound weird, it's still, life total still
Still very much a resource.
Still very much a resource, even in
It's
budget.
not a resource in budget.
It's life points are a resource. Very important to Magic the Gathering.
But speaking of resources and budget, there's another Budget Bombs video waiting for you right here. And if you don't click it, the Budget Bombs video is going to cry.
Probably. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.